So, gaining a perspective from hiding behind the couch, one of the things that we do, I firmly believe this. I believe that we, at some point in our life, cognitively, subconsciously, whatever, I believe we come to a point where we say, I'm either going to follow that pattern of parental behavior or I want to be just the opposite of that. And I think maybe sometimes even subconsciously that just happens in our life. But I remember thinking, even as a young man, especially when I got to be about 12 years old, when Freddie was no longer in the house and I didn't feel that fear the way I did, I got to feeling that's not right. That behavior, to perpetuate that on your children, is not right. And so I began to think, as life went on, I'm not going to be that guy. I'm not going to do. But the the other thing is I had to measure these extremes. Okay, so was I not going to be the guy that had 5 girlfriends on the side and just had one? I'm not going to be the guy that's going to beat my kid every day. I'm just going to beat him once a week. I'm not that. So I had to battle that. Okay, what is norm? And since I didn't have an example of it, I had to come to some kind of conclusion of, okay, what is normal parenting? What are the parameters for normal parenting? So did you wrestle with those things? Did you come to?
I'm still not sure I understand.
Right.
Parenting. I struggled with those things, and unfortunately, there were times that things came out when I was punishing my children. Sometimes those things, maybe I was too hard or reacted too hard instead of approaching it with the more kindness.
I think I can remember back with my oldest. I think one of the challenges as a dad is, how do I instill in my children this understanding of character counts, an understanding of men behave a certain way, we're to treat women a certain way. How do I instill that into my children, and how do I get that in their life in a way that's positive and everything, but and bring correction, because kids need correction.
That's right.
How do I do that, but without breaking their spirit? And I think that was one of the things that I was challenged with.
Yeah.
And I remember one incident with my oldest son. It's an incident that kept me up all night. I had corrected him, and it was almost as if I felt that I was in a battle of wills. And I let that battle, that thought of being in a battle of wills, overcome me to the point where I put myself on his level, and it became a battle of the wills, which was inconsistent behavior. I'm the father. It's not a battle of wills. It's, son, I serve in this role, you serve in that role, and until you're out of my home, that's the role you're going to stay in. And I got into that, and it kept me up all night. And my correction to him that night, physically and verbally, was inappropriate. And so, I was constantly kind of evaluating those things and trying to do better. But it is hard. It's hard to find that and not break their spirit in the meantime.
I wonder how much of you were talking about when he left the house and you were 12 and you began to analyze these things and go over them. I wonder what taught us to be respectful to women, because we didn't see it. Because I'm very. I think most people that I have. I think most ladies that have known me know that I'm pretty Southern gentleman.
Right.
Open the car door, walk on the curb side of the
Right.
sidewalk, and those are little things, open the door for them. But I think they would see that, would agree that I am a Southern gentleman. But where did we get that from? Because we didn't get it from him. Was it just not wanting to be like him, or what?
I think you make a good point. I think and probably two different things. Number one was that we desired to be just the opposite of him, not just not be like him. We wanted to be the opposite of him, where he was full of deceit. We wanted to be honest. Where he was angry all the time and inconsistent, we wanted to bring consistency. So probably two things. We wanted to be just the opposite of him. But the other thing is that we were brought up in a culture that bred those things into us too. Our grandfather, a wonderful example in our lives. I think we had a couple of good uncles that portrayed these things. Howard Dyson, Uncle Howard being one of those. Uncle Ed and Uncle Delbert, those men. Uncle Raymond, yeah, great man of God
Walter.
too, yeah. Uncle Walter as well.
I can't remember seeing any of that kind of behavior that Freddie had displayed in any of the other men.
Right.
Now, did he go on behind doors at their home? I don't know, but I didn't see it.
Right. I think some of that would have come out throughout the years if it had been. Say Uncle Walter, for instance, great man of God, raised his family to fear the Lord and everything. I know that he corrected his children, but I have never heard whispers of anything other than correct methods of correcting and punishment. So I think the culture that we were in, being from an extended family, because when we talk about family, we don't talk about family like normal people do. When we talk about family, we're like second, third generation cousins, and how we relate to them is different than what other people.
Our life's centered around family, extended family.
Yep.
And, we hate to say it, but that's one of the Southern traits.
Absolutely,
Is,
yeah.
Sundays you go to grandma's and everybody's there and eat together, and sometimes not eat together, sometimes just spend the day together.
Yeah.
And it just seems like you're always with them.
Well, one of the things that in that extended family situation, our grandparents were consistent people.
Very consistent, yeah.
When you spent the night with grandma and granddaddy, you knew you're going to shut the TV off at a certain time, you're going to kneel down in the living room, you're going to have prayer, and if you didn't like it, that was just too bad.
Yeah.
And what was worse than that was the next morning. You would get up the next morning. Our grandmother was a wonderful cook. Homemade biscuits that would stay soft for 4 or 5 days. And she put a meal on the table, biscuits and gravy and eggs and bacon and sausage, and you'd come to the table and your mouth's watering, and you just, oh, this is going to be wonderful. And then Granddaddy would say, let's pray. And you're like, okay, great, God is good, God is great, let's sing for his food. That wasn't it.
No.
He slid his chair out, knelt down by the table, and Grandma did the same, and they went through prayer.
Yeah.
But that consistency. So as much as Freddie's inconsistency, our dad's inconsistency bred fear in me, that consistency made me feel safe and secure.
Yeah.
I knew that it was like, if I could just make it to Grandma's house, I'm okay. Everything's going to be okay.
Right.
So I think that helped us be
Yes, it did.
to see through that thing that Freddie was doing toward women.
Yeah. I remember, we've talked in general, might as well talk a little
Sure.
bit more specific. So that, because we live in a day and time now that everything is called abuse.
Yes.
Everything. And it's kind of sad where we've gotten to the point we've gotten that, just anything you say is abusive to somebody else, or anything you do. But this was this was true abuse, such as, I mean, it didn't take anything, like you said, to set him off. Like, I remember one of my earliest remembrance was, we had an old TV that, well, it wasn't old at the time, but our TV had the dial on it where you had two dials. You had one to change channels. It may have had 12 channels on it, I don't know. And then the other one was to fine tune it.
Right, that's right.
And, you know, I don't know if it was one Sunday, I think, and we had gotten home and we were watching TV, and I think we may have been watching sports. Mama wanted to watch something else, and I was the remote control. They said, turn it over. I thought maybe Mama was watching TV first, and Dad told me to turn it over. I went up and I turned it over. Mama said, no, you don't, turn that back. And I turned it back. Dad Freddy said, no, turn that over. And we turned it over. And it started off laughing, but then it got so angry and violent that it scarred me to the point that that's a memory I have.
Right.
One of the earliest memories. So it had to have been very traumatic.
Right, it's an imprint on your mind now.
Yes. So, you know, there I was between the two, and both of them pretty outright angry. So, you know, that was an explosion. A little thing like that became a big thing in a hurry. I can't remember. I remember when we lived out in the country one time, one night, and in fact I wrote a little simplistic song about one time about it, but our room was down the hall. Me and you were roomed together, and you could hear them fighting down the hall. And you know, I didn't go to sleep. I wouldn't go to sleep and couldn't go to sleep till I heard everything was quiet.
Right.
And even then, I wondered, okay, everything's quiet. What does that mean?
Right.
You know, and
There was that uneasiness, that fear.
fear, you know. I mean, I hate to say it, but sometimes you just wonder, well, did he kill her?
Right.
You know, when you wake up in the morning, is she going to be there?
Right. And to try to go, because we have been kind of general, we'll talk about the last real big thing that took place. So we were at the breakfast table.
Yeah.
I don't know what you had done. It was something relating to school or something, maybe. I can't remember exactly.
I don't remember.
And you done something, said something. Freddie jumps up from the end of the table, grabs you. You go down into what is our den area, and he beat you. I mean, he didn't give you a whooping. He beat you and slapped you around, and it was just horrible to sit there and listen to what was going on. He comes back to the table, sets you down, and I think Mama said something to the effect, you know, you don't have to be so hard on him or whatever. Mm-hmm. He grabbed his coffee cup, slammed it down, coffee went all over everybody, the glass shattered. He jumps up, grabs Mama, shoves her up against the wall, and is choking her. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I think I had to be 9 or 10. I can't remember. I grabbed a T.J. Blackburn syrup jar off the table, and I said, if you don't let her go, I'm going to hit you with it. So just a side note, T.J. Blackburn is the best syrup in the world, and it works for a good weapon if you need it. But that was the kind of hostility. He hit us with ropes. He hit us with water hoses. He threatened to kill us and Mom out in Amarillo. He had the gun behind the seat. I'll kill myself. So it wasn't just we got spankings and we're upset as grown men about it. Right. These were violent acts of a man who terrorized his family and could have easily have turned into a newsreel. Man kills family, takes his own life. He was that unstable at times. So that bred into us. His inconsistency bred into us fear. But we talked about our grandparents breeding into us. Their consistency bred into us a security. So one of the things, and I pick at my wife, and if she, thank God she'll probably never watch this because she's just never. But we we come from two different perspectives in life. I'm a very positive person, and so I always see everything is we can do this until it's proven we can't. And my wife is just the opposite. My wife goes from the negative. We can't do that until you prove to her that
Don't look at me. I'm
can.
not agreeing. My head is not shaking.
Kim, earlier he said, I know what you know. So we come from those two different perspectives. And so from those two different perspectives, my children have had this wonderful balance in their life. And they have said, if you ask Dad, yes, we can do it. If you ask Mom, well, I'm not sure. And somewhere in the middle, we always find that happy medium. And I love her for being so consistent. She's consistently coming from that perspective, which balances me out. But what it does, it also gives me, I know how to deal with her because I know exactly where she's going to come from. And so her consistency creates a security. I know how my wife's going to respond every time. And it's not hateful, it's not aggravating. I just know she's going to bring the balance to my sometimes over positive attitude. So consistency in any form is easier to deal with and brings a certain level of security. Consistency in any form, I believe, is a positive trait in a person's life. We should always be working to balance our life with positive and negative. But even if you come from, if a person is overtly confrontational in everything, at least I know when I talk to that person, there's a consistency, and I have a comfortable level of dealing with that person. Where if you're inconsistent and I don't know how you're going to respond, there's a reluctance in my life to want to interact with you because of what went on in my childhood.
That's right.
So I don't know if that makes sense to anybody
Yeah.
but me, but
Me too.
it does. It does with me. So then let's talk just a little bit about good name, bad name, because dads should have a good name in a good reputation. Dads should always strive to have a good
You want to be
reputation.
proud of your dad.
Absolutely, that's right. And so striving to have a good reputation and a good name for your children's sake and for your sake, we didn't have that example. Our dad did not have the best name. Matter of fact, if you're watching this and our dad owes you money, we sincerely apologize. But in no way, shape, form, or fashion are we assuming responsibility for his poor behavior and the bills he left owing you. But he didn't have a good name. He didn't have a good name financially. He didn't pay his bills right. He didn't have a good name in business because he done some pretty shady stuff. And so we had to figure out later on in life the value of a good name.
Yeah.
How do you think you came across that? How did you come to the point to where you said, okay, this is a good name so important?
Wow. How I came across it, I don't know. It just, we had his reputation to overcome.
Right.
And then, back in those days, in the 70s, when your parents divorced and your dad was no longer in the picture, you weren't seen as a very, a lot of times, doing the same things others would do and get in trouble in public. You would they would label you as unruly, or it's because you didn't have a dad at home.
That's right. That's
so,
right.
We had that to overcome. And then we didn't help ourselves either.
No, we didn't. Our behavior as teenagers, but as you said, it may have been exaggerated a little bit because of that fact. Because there's a lot of other kids that did what we did that didn't get the reputation that we got.
And honestly, him leaving, it did instill one thing in me that was, I think, that led to what you're talking about, having a good name. But I felt I took on a role as a protector, and I felt like I had to be seen as someone who was a protector of anything that was wrong, really, of anyone that was being wronged. I felt that way. I don't know that I came across that way, but I felt that way, that I, just had to be a protector.
And that extended beyond just your family.
Yeah,
You felt
yeah.
you were responsible to protect anyone who was being mistreated or there was a wrong in their life.
Right, right.
I think one of the things for me was seeing the contrast between, and I hate to keep going back to this, but it's the truth, seeing the contrast between my dad and my grandfather, my maternal grandfather